Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bruce Whitfield, and I will be your host once again today, hoping that you are having a stupendous afternoon. Today, the last day of the Accenture Cloud Week event series. Over the last 3 days, just to remind you, we've had discussions on enterprise transformation, cloud and data, or data if you prefer, secure and sustainable cloud. And today, we're going to be focusing on the critical elements of innovation and growth. When COVID-19 hit us in the beginning of 2020, businesses began to accelerate their digital transformation to cloud to help navigate the huge and enormous and disruptive human and business impact. And it's since then become very, very clear to all of us that working from home and business continuity have been made possible by cloud computing. Without it, it would have been a complete shambles. And helping businesses and people to deliver on and realizing that promise of digital transformation. Now, as business reinvents itself to outmaneuver this uncertainty through reinvention, they really are beginning to realize value. This reinvention presents a whole host of opportunities. And now is the time for organizations to build and to expand on those capabilities they wish they'd invested in before the crisis. But you never do you? No, you don't. So what you need now is agility and flexibility that cloud technology enables. And it means opening new ways of working, operating, and doing business. In other words, innovation is giving birth to growth, which is what our theme is all about today. So before I welcome our first speaker today, let's give another listen to the Cloud Week Time Is Now video to maximize that value. And to get straight on after that, we welcome Luis Rodriguez, who's Managing Director at Accenture Africa for Strategy and Consulting, plus Bhavini Naidu, who's Managing Director of Technology, to set the scene in terms of what it means to innovate and grow in the cloud.
Thank you, Bruce. My name is Luis Rodriguez, and I look after Accenture Strategy and Consulting for Africa. And I have here with me Bhavini Naidu.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bhavini. I'm a Managing Director in Technology Sales for Africa. So, Luis, I'm looking forward to today. I think we've got quite an exciting lineup for the agenda. And there's also an interesting topic around innovation and growth. In your perspective, what are the main ways in which cloud can drive innovation and growth?
Thanks for the question, Bhavini, because this is a very important topic. A lot of people talk about cost and efficiency around cloud, but very few about innovation and growth. So my mind, there's 5 key ways in which cloud drives innovation and growth. The first one is about enabling new business models. And here we're talking about new products, services, channels. And it happens across all industries, but most importantly, across industry intersections. The second point that I would like to highlight is about powering ecosystem thinking. And ecosystem thinking is something that is probably a buzzword that you hear often. But in here, what we mean is about really the increasing the ability to leverage partners and to create ecosystems around it. The third way is about reducing the cost of experimenting. Experimenting used to be a thing in the past in which it would take long to experiment and it was very costly. Cloud significantly reduces that cost and that time. The fourth way is about how the cloud can actually accelerate the journey to leverage data analytics, which we know is a key ingredient in driving that innovation and growth. And the last part is that a key thing in driving growth and innovation is about scaling that innovation. And in the past, it was extremely hard to scale businesses, new businesses. Cloud can really fast track that scaling of new businesses.
So, Luis, you mentioned an interesting point around powering ecosystem thinking. Can we dive into that for a few minutes? So you mentioned working with partners and leveraging partners to build an ecosystem. Do you have a few examples of that?
Sure. And I think the key thing is that it is not, cloud doesn't make it easier for you to identify the partners. I think that's something that has to be sorted, and is more organizational capability around how to identify which partners and how do you work with them. And there's a lot to do about it, and I'm actually going to talk about it later. But what cloud actually does is that once you have the right partner, the ability to connect, the ability to share, the ability to build a platform technically, the ability to connect those platforms is a lot easier. So it is about the technical side of powering the ecosystem.
That's great.
So, Bhavini, over to you. What in your minds? What are the key ingredients that to drive innovation given cloud?
Well, good question, Louise. I think the points that you mentioned around the sort of things that cloud can drive when it comes to innovation and growth are all spot on. However, trying to make it real is also important. So, how do you do that? Well, there are a couple of the key things to do. Firstly, it's around setting the right target. So setting the target up front and then staying true to it. Every single organization that is aspiring to a cloud journey should have a goal that is going to get them to their end state. And they should be measuring throughout that journey. Then another key ingredient, which we found over time from multiple companies all over the world, is that it's also important to drive the agenda from top down. The entire organization should be subscribed to the cloud agenda, not just a certain part of the organization, be it the IT fraternity or certain areas within business, but the entire organization should subscribe to the cloud journey and should drive it and have that mindset in everything that they do and everything that they embed. Then something that you mentioned around reducing the cost of experimenting is also quite key here and apt, because one of the other principles here is around starting small, scaling, failing fast. So everybody's heard about agile principles, also applies in the cloud environment and also quite important for success. Another key point is around leveraging cloud native functionality. And I think this is a point I can't stress enough. I think many companies right now are looking towards cloud as a mechanism to drive down costs, not necessarily as a mechanism to drive innovation and drive growth. And one of the levers that can be utilized is cloud native functionality. I mean, the likes of the hyperscalers, AWS, Microsoft, etc., invest a lot in developing this functionality so that other companies do not have to. And so what's important is staying abreast of that and providing functionality or developing functionality that takes advantage of those cloud native features. I'd say another key ingredient would be around seeking help. So every company out there does not necessarily have all the skills and capabilities to go on a cloud journey from day one. And lining up the right help, and I have to say it's going to be a shameless plug, partners such as Accenture to drive that agenda and help build that momentum is going to be important as well. So I hope that made sense.
For sure. And I think it kind of resonates with what I'm seeing in the organizations that are successfully driving this.
Louise, I've got a question for you though. Do you think organizations are being successful in terms of their innovation and growth agenda when it comes to cloud? And if not, what do you think is preventing organizations from achieving that?
Unfortunately, I would say a vast minority are being fully successful. And I think it's something that most organizations would say, yes, we are doing things around cloud, but am I seeing the value that I was expecting? The answer would be no. And again, in my mind, there's probably 5 things. Now, the 5 things that I'm going to discuss they're going to seem quite obvious. So the trick is not about the 5 things that I'm going to discuss, and because they are quite obvious, and it is about how you actually address them, and it's not easy to address them. So let me be honest. The first thing starts with, cloud. In a lot of organizations, cloud is still being seen as a technology thing. Now, that is kind of a starting point and a lens. If you look at cloud with that lens, that already limits what you can do. So the fact that it's been seen as a technology thing is the first thing that I think we have to change. Organizations have to look at, am I doing this? The second part, and that's one I just wrote an article about a month ago, is that I think of cloud as a lemon. in which you're trying to make the majority of lemon juice. And if you think about the lemon, when you make lemon juice, you cut the lemon in two halves. What organizations are doing is that they're taking the half of the lemon that is about efficiency, and they're really trying hard to squeeze that lemon. And I'm not saying that there's no value. There's a lot of value in that lemon, right? But there's very little that has been done with the side of the lemon that is about new business models and growth and efficiency. That's almost untouched. So that's kind of preventing a big part of the value from being driven. The third part is it's not specific to cloud. It's more of an organization that it's more a thing that actually prevents you from doing innovation and growth across anything. And this about most organizations still have a huge number of silos. And driving growth and innovation, regardless of whether it's cloud, using the cloud or not, is very difficult when you have those organizational silos. The fourth thing is about ways of working. And now I know a lot of organizations have said, well, we're doing agile in some sort of ways around tech delivery. Fair enough. But to actually drive innovation and growth, the ways of working have to drastically change. And this is way more than just doing agile within tech. And then the last one that I would comment, it's aligned to what you discuss around KPIs, right? And I call them Myopic Kpis. And there's a few things that can kind of cover here is, and when I mean myopic, it might be about the timeline of the KPIs. In some cases, they're not end-to-end. In some cases, they're actually against innovation. For example, there's a lot of organizations in which KPIs actually make it very difficult to innovate because the cost of failing, it's high. So if your cost of failing is high and you have KPIs that are driven around that, it makes it extremely difficult to pursue it. So, Babini, for I think it's a great topic that people are going to be very excited. What is in the rest of the agenda today around growth and innovation that people can expect to?
So today's lineup is quite great. Firstly, we've got some entertainment on the cards. The Ndlovu Youth Choir is going to provide that entertainment. Then we're going to hear from Edwin van der Oudera and Jigyasa Singh around how cloud can be used as an enabler for business models. The other cool topic that's also coming up in the agenda today is a hearing about our Accenture MyNav asset and how that can be used to enable innovation and growth. And last but definitely not least, and wait for it, Neil Adamson and Barry Schwartzberg from Discovery, along with Richard Pouncett from Accenture, will be sharing tips around how to embed successful business models when it comes to the cloud. So it's all in all, it's quite an interesting and exciting agenda for today, Louise.
Sounds very excited.
Awesome. Bruce, back to you.
Thanks to Bhavini and to Louis for that great introduction on innovation and growth. Well, moving to cloud is on everybody's agenda, but what is more critical is how you build the strategy, incorporating key value frameworks and partnering with the right partners who've got the technological skills you need to grow your business. More and more we're hearing the words cloud as enabler and cloud as a business imperative. Well, next up to explain it all is Accenture Africa's Cloud First lead Jigyasa Singh and Edwin van der Oudera. He is the Senior Managing Director, the Global Lead for Accenture Customer Sales and Service Practice and Digital Banking, tuning in from the UK. We'll look at how every business is first an e-commerce business post the pandemic. Welcome to Jigyasa and to Edwin.
Bruce. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the today 4 of our Cloud First event for Africa. I'm very happy to be here and nice to see you again. As most of you know, I'm the Cloud First lead for Accenture in Africa, and today I'm sharing stage with Edwin, who's going to introduce himself and is a pro on this subject.
Thanks, you guys. So I'm Edwin, and very pleased to be with all of you guys. And I hope next time we can be physically together. I've been many times to South Africa, and it would be great to be back. So I lead our customer sales and service practice at Accenture globally. So that's basically all the front-end agenda across all industries. where, of course, as you will see in the presentation, tons and tons of things are happening. And before that, I've been leading the whole digital practice for financial services over the last 10 years. So I've seen lots of digital transformations everywhere in the world. So it'd be great to discuss that with you, Gigas.
Excellent. And Edwin, the interesting part of this conversation is that we've kind of built up the momentum for cloud, how customers get onto cloud, what are the key ingredients for success, starting from leadership transformation to talking about, some nuts and bolts stuff around security, etc. Looking at the broader impact of cloud in terms of sustainability and leveraging data to get the best value out of cloud. What we're going to talk today more interestingly is about, what is the future of organizations in the cloud? How do organizations really unleash the value of cloud once they've migrated, and it's the step beyond the migration? So, Edwin, I'm over to you and keen to hear your perspectives on that.
Yeah, it's a really exciting topic, Gigas. And we're a bit at a very special moment in time now. It's like we had this digital decade, the previous decade, and there's a new decade now. And we're all kind of wondering what that's going to be. But it's definitely going to be about cloud, and it's definitely going to be about massive disruption in all of the different business models enabled by cloud. All the stuff we can now do in terms of business models that we could not even think about 10 years ago. And that's what we see happening all around us, and we'll talk a bit about that. So what's happening is, and COVID really, sadly as the whole thing is, in fact, accelerated very much the digital transformations that were going on, the new trends. We really talk about a fast forward to 2025 type of scenario sadly through the lockdowns. And what happened is we were all forced to stay at home, all of us at the same time across the world, like an unplanned experiment in digital. And because we already had digital from the previous decade, luckily we were able to get a lot of things done, both personally and professionally. But it forced everybody to start working digitally and to accelerate that. And that's really where we are now. And in a sense, that's not going to change anymore. We see that in all of our surveys. So every business, we say, is now first and foremost an e-commerce business. Anybody who starts a business, whether you're a new flower shop around the corner or you are a big multinational, you are first thinking about your business as e-commerce, as totally digital, and then you think about what you're going to do physically on top. That is the new paradigm that we live in, as opposed to the previous 10 years where we had the normal business, and then we did a little bit of digital on the side, and maybe that was on cloud, maybe on-prem, but now it's all digital first, and as we call it, digital by default, and of course, it's all on cloud because that's where it scales and that's where we can do stuff we could never do before. And as you can see, the whole front-end agenda, there's not a single thing that we see with companies across the world. There's not a single thing that isn't actually now done on the cloud in the front end. I can't find any innovation that's happening in the front that's on some local server somewhere. It just doesn't happen anymore. So this is the new world, And in that new world, if everything's digital and everything's e-commerce, then there is a very interesting thing that's happening here about what do we do with the humans? So on the one hand, we want to be able to do everything digitally, end to end, because sometimes we have to. But we all long for being with people. I mean, we're in video right now, so we want to talk to people. We want to see people. We want to be with people, but probably digitally a lot. So there is this interesting thing that when this paradigm shift, while everything's digital on the cloud, at the same time, we're more sharp about when we want to see humans. It's crucial to see humans, but why? In the old days, it was all human, and we knew it was important, but we never articulated why. Now we do, and that is something that's really important in how we think of the new business models. And for example, contact centers. All the people in the contact centers overnight had to go and work at home. So we had to distribute the call centers. We were telling companies for 10 years to go on cloud-based contact centers. And everybody's like, yeah, maybe we'll see, But now, of course, they all had to do it. And now that they're all doing it, they see, it actually works quite well. But I always say to clients, a remote contact center actually does not exist. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't exist? Well, it's actually just your people. It's your people of your company that are client-facing. You used to cram them in a room, all sitting together, because you had to, because of the length of the telephony cable. But that was the 80s, Now they're just anywhere, and they talk to the client from anywhere, or maybe even in video. So it's really not about a call center anymore. It's about all your people being customer facing. So you can see that, everything is starting to change in how we think about the business models.
Yeah, and Edwin, just on that point, we're doing some very interesting work for some of our clients in the contact center space, moving contact centers to cloud. And the whole shift of, what the DNA of the contact center individual is and the personnel is becoming so prevalent now, because it's no longer about servicing. It's about, this is the point where you've got a human contact, whether it's, in the form of voice or video, but you've got a human contact, and how does the organization put its best foot forward to grow their business and, to have the best relationship and create the best experience out of that contact. So it's a total paradigm shift from where a contact center used to be a place where, people would phone, none of us want to call a contact center in the first place. But you phone a contact center because, you are upset about something. And how do you change that experience to becoming, something that is more about empathy, more about building relationships and growing your business at the end of the day?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to come back to that. But we see it in all our surveys. Customers, they want to be empowered to have full control and to do everything themselves. And so hopefully it all works and they never have to call, because then they're upset. But that used to be an important function of that call center. And now it's exactly like you say. If they're empowered and they can do everything themselves through their app, then the customer-facing people are there for relationship and advice, which is very different from how it used to be.
Yeah. And Edwin, let's move on from here to the next segment where we talk about battle lines and how, there's a picture-in-picture, shop-in-shop kind of an experience.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. It goes back to that thing about everything is e-commerce. It is so absolutely profound. And we see that in B2C, obviously, but we see that in B2B just the same. In all my daily workshops with heavy chemical companies, mining companies, car manufacturers, whatever it is, it's the same thing, actually. There it's, of course, B2B marketplaces. But if it's consumer, it'll probably be something like a Facebook or something. But, that is where the new business is done. It's the new marketplace, literally, like on the square in the old days, the square of the village or the town. This is now where it's happening. And so the real battle lines are actually between who's going to be the dominant platforms, literally, where those marketplaces are going to happen. So it's an Amazon, obviously, there's an Alibaba, but there's new forms aggregating, or groups aggregating around, for example, Grab in Southeast Asia, or in Indonesia with Tokopedia and Gojek. And, and you see that in all the regions, that there are these groups consolidating that are starting to form platforms on which people come together. There is social activity there. And then there is e-commerce facility there in different business models. And then there is delivery behind it to get the thing to the customer. We'll talk about that in a second. But that is the real big battle. Who's going to win? And probably there's going to be 5, 6, 7 big global platforms. And then there'll be what we would call the regional gorillas, the big guys in each of the regions that are region specific. And that'll be it. Okay. And so you as a company, a small or a big company, we talk to the biggest brands in beauty, for example, and they might be on Shopify, but that local flower shop or that local bakery might be on Shopify. Okay. And if I want to do a simple thing, I can create over the weekend with a few clicks a simple shop on Shopify, or even now in Facebook. And the vision of, for example, Zuckerberg is to say, look, there's 2 billion or more Facebook and Instagram accounts and so on. Every single one of them, with a few clicks, we should enable to be a shop, so that anybody in the world can be in contact socially with anybody else, and they can exchange ideas, and then they can link and they can trade or exchange, just talk. All of that becomes one thing. That is really the new world in which everything's happening. And I don't have to give you a picture that in the old days, when I used to create architectures for companies and I put in a room racks with servers on which we would have the website, I could never dream of creating an exposure to billions of people across the whole world with a few racks of servers. I mean, I would have to bring in all the racks. So this is all stuff that's only possible because we have the cloud.
Yeah, I mean, it's like true democratization of technology, right? The fact that you could leverage somebody else's platform in whatever means and forms that it works for you to be able to showcase and have a broad outreach. I mean, this could not be possible before. And this is not like long ago, just a few years ago, this was not possible, When a new advert, a new campaign came out in place in the market, the next thing would be, have you stress tested it enough or are the websites down?
I've seen it in Africa. I've seen it in Africa. I've seen it in India. I've seen it in Bangladesh. I've seen it in Indonesia. You go to the smallest villages and the farmer creates a shop with a few clicks on one of these platforms and is able to sell directly the chickens and whatever else that he's producing in the city, directly to restaurants, for example. It's like you said, it's total democratization. He doesn't need a technical architect and a whole development team to make all of that happen. So it's absolutely exciting that this is possible.
And it's about focusing on what you're best at, right? Without having to think about tech and IT and architecture and scalability and security. But then just progressing this conversation further, Edwin, I mean, I see that you made a point previously about the last mile and how the last mile is the differentiation. Let's just hear your perspectives on that a little bit.
Yeah, and this is really exciting. So the concept of the last mile for this decade is going to be absolutely crucial. It's a word that was hardly used in the past. But now it's really important. It's a bit like, I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie of The Matrix, where people are in that virtual world and then they pop out into the real world, and at some point you don't even know which one or the different layers of digital versus real worlds are, and maybe the real world is even digital, who knows? But it's a bit that kind of thing. If everything's e-commerce and everything is in a digital world, at some point we kind of need to pop out into the real world and deliver stuff to the customer, and that's what we call the last mile. But actually, there are two extreme models of the last mile. One is actually a digital last mile, and so we call it the Netflix model. So the whole chain of production and discovery of the service and purchasing and then delivery and fulfillment of the service, everything's digital, pure digital. Huh? And Netflix, used to be a company that delivered CDs, DVDs of movies, so they were very physical in those days. And the other extreme model is what I would call Uber Eats or Deliveroo or one of those. It's where somebody comes and delivers at your home physically. All right. So this and what we see is that all the models of the future, all the new ones, they are somewhere on that spectrum in a combination. Take, for example, Peloton. Peloton, the guys that make these bicycles and treadmills and things like that, they are wiping out all of the existing fitness companies, that used to be the dominant players to have fitness equipment. Why? Because these guys have understood that it's actually about having also fitness equipment at home. And again, democratization. I don't need a whole technical team to make that thing work. Okay, but it still has to be delivered at home. So that's the Uber Eats aspect of it. Okay, somebody delivers it, and then I have a treadmill at home. But there's a Netflix aspect to it. Because why do I go to a gym? Not just for the exercise, but for the community of people that are also exercising. And I don't want to do that on my own because that is really boring. So that's what they brought together. And they realized that that does not mean that you have to do that in a fitness studio. So they took those elements that are really important to the customers and they created a new product with it. And that is, and so now you have this, and it's obviously cloud. You've got this video community across the whole world of people all in sort of virtual classes and exercise rooms together, in that instant video with hundreds and thousands of them. I mean, imagine if you would have to do that in the original world. That would never have worked. So I think that's a really good example. But by that company is totally disrupting the fitness studio world. It's totally disrupting also the guys that make those machines. So in one go, it's changing everything. And that kind of change, because of people really understanding why we need the last mile and what that actually is. So what's the buyer value, what people really want? That is the thing that drives all these transformations.
Absolutely. And it's about the frictionless experience in that last mile, right? It's the ability of the buyer to choose how and where and what they want to buy. That's going to be the key differentiator. Now, Edwin, moving on from here, I'm just trying to understand, how do organizations then structure themselves to win in this ecosystem? What are the key DNA points around organizations that have been successful in this world of, leveraging cloud technologies, being digital by default, and having the right strategy in terms of their customer outreach?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wanted to use the example here in financial services. One of the reasons why I wanted to do that was because it's a regulated industry. So, you would think, the banks used to tell us, but you can't change much because it's all regulated. So nothing, how was to stay the same? Well, that's not really true, clearly. But secondly, they were also always saying, but this is a very complicated industry. So nobody else understands. So it's our way or the highway. So, but actually the fintechs and the neobanks, they all changed that. And they took individual products, because banking is not one thing. It's many, many different products that are very different. And here are some examples that are taking very specific parts of the banking chain, like international payments, which used to be an absolute pain and very expensive, digital payments with Klarna and the likes, which is the pay later thing, which is actually a mini consumer loan in real time. And then people like Robinhood and so on that have really changed the whole industry around brokerage, buying and selling of shares, making that so extremely easy. So and then there's Lemonade, for example, who's doing the same with insurance. So all these companies take one slice with one product, and then they apply all the recipes we were talking about, and then they build a digital stack that is a digital stack as if they are a Silicon Valley company. Okay, well, they are Silicon Valley companies, but so they don't think like the original IT stacks of the banks. This is all pure cloud from back to front, and because they are totally like on the cloud, as if they were with like Google and Facebook, with that kind of technology, they can scale massively. They can scale like Uber can scale, for example. And remember a few years ago, Uber was the one that scaled out to hundreds of millions of customers in about 100 countries in what is almost overnight. Okay, and they are still sending out changes to the software all the time. You don't even notice. And it's the same with those guys. So in the old days, I would have sent squads with teams to all these countries, and it would take them months to reinstall new softwares on all the servers and everything. Now, it's just an automatic system, with CI/CD, continuous integration and so on, to just push it all out. And that's what you can do with these new technologies, and you can scale. Okay. And then once you have that kind of technology that can scale and be continuous, then what you do is you take a product and you totally re-engineer it as a concept to something that's extremely simple. So, for example, the CEO of Robinhood said, securities, which one of the most complex businesses there was, he said, I'm going to make it as simple as Airbnb. Okay? Airbnb is a perfect example. Airbnb has also, 100 million customers or something, and they have 10,000s, maybe 100,000s now, of places that are for rent anywhere in the world, between a room or an apartment in New York and some room in the middle of the jungle of Indonesia or something, and everything in between, of people that are not professionals in renting, right? I mean, think about that. I work with, I used to travel all the time pre-COVID, so I'm like this double, triple platinum at all the big hotel chains. I have like, for the next of my 5 lifetimes, I have a full gold membership of a number of them, so I'm okay. But even so, as that type of user of hotels, it's still a pain for me to find a room, make a reservation, check in, make a change, check out, etc. And I'm like, how can these big hotel chains be so difficult? They're like the securities companies versus Robinhood versus Airbnb. Why, if Airbnb can do that with normal people renting out rooms, why is it then hard for me to go to the website of a hotel room, of a normal hotel? It's that kind of simplicity. And then once you have that, you can scale it out across the world. And that, I think, is the absolute power of the new business models that are based on the cloud premise.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting perspectives, Edwin. And I'm just trying to think of, the time when we were traveling and, human interaction was more possible. How do we bring that human back into the digital space? And I know you touched on it earlier in terms of, there's the new form factor for human interaction is video. But it's quite an interesting perspective because customers still should have the choice to say that, now I want to speak to an individual and enough of self-service. Plus, there's also a segment of customers that would want to, by default, have the choice of talking to somebody and getting their stuff done. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think it's almost like a paradox, isn't it? Is the more digital we get, the more we actually want things to be like human-like. So if you think about it, all the digital interactions we have, they're all evolving and becoming more human-like. Okay, so that's the first thing that's happening. The second thing is we actually all want to talk to people. Yeah. So, but who wants to talk to people and for what? Huh? So we see that in all of our surveys that we do, is that people want to be empowered to make any change that they want themselves at any point in time and wherever they are, okay, on anything. And that's true for banking, that's true for their order on Amazon, that's true for their Airbnb, that's true for everything. They want to be able to do that themselves. But then they want to talk to a person. Hopefully not because something's gone wrong. Obviously, if they can't solve it themselves, and maybe they talk to Alexa or Nina or one of those bots, and she, if I may call it a she, cannot solve that, then of course I want to talk to a human. But what we find in the research is that people mostly want to talk to humans for the human connection, for the relationship. And then they want advice. So what we see is that now people go primarily for advice. They go online. So they first look for stuff. Then they go social. So they check with friends and recommendations, which are in the social world, Facebook and all of those types, and TripAdvisor and whatever else, all of those types of formats that bring opinions of people together. And after they've gone social, for complicated stuff, they want to talk to a human being and they want to say, did I get that right? Did I understand well what needs to happen here? And then you want to look somebody in the eye, literally in the eye. And that's why video, for us, as all the rest becomes digital, whatever is left is video, where we're just going to be talking to people. And so what we already see happening is that the video is the new desktop. It's where all the applications go into, instead of being on the side somewhere else. Okay? And again, you could not think of any of this stuff, of talking in video with thousands of customers at the same time across the world, if it wasn't for these web solutions, of course, that are on the cloud for video. Huh? I mean, literally Teams and Zoom and those types of things saved us from breakdown of society as we were in lockdown. Huh? But imagine, we couldn't have done that 10 years ago.
10 years is too long ago. Actually, you couldn't have done it 3 years ago. But very interesting perspectives, Edwin. I'm just thinking we've had quite a number of conversations, and different perspectives of how digital by default, how cloud technologies has made, just the access to customer and the ability for different sizes of businesses to be able to be out there and create a similar experience, etc. I'm just thinking maybe as a quick recap, if we had to look at what were the key points of differentiation for some of these organizations that are leaders in their space to others who are aspiring to get there, maybe we could just do a quick recap of that.
Yeah, so we were looking at all those disruptive cases that we saw in each of the different industries. And then we saw there were some common threads around how you think about the structuring of your products for the future. Okay, and then the services around those products, and then the customer care. Okay, and so first of all, the products, all the successful new products that are pushing away the old ones, in any industry, they have the common characteristic of that so-called extreme simplicity for the customer. All right, so they're boiled down to the essence of what the customer actually is really valuing, and all the other stuff isn't there. Okay, whereas in the old days it was the opposite. It was a supply side thinking. I can make something, I'm going to make it, and hopefully somebody likes it. But actually, when you think of the features, half of the features, the people don't actually want them, but it's just part of the stuff. So all that clutter goes away. The products are really simplified, and you design them for what we call zero service. Now, zero service doesn't mean no service, but it means that intrinsically you try and strip away all needs for service. And you'd be surprised, what we call the orthodoxies, the things that we never think about that are in the way we just do things, the way normally things are done, as we call it. We never think about that, but most products, most service around the products in any industry is just stuff that happens historically because we've always done it that way. And if you really, really think about it, then you see you don't need it at all. And that's what each of those breakthrough companies does. So they take all that clutter away. So simple products, zero service. And then, of course, then you get to what Amazon says is, okay, we're going to give you a fantastic delivery and fulfillment on all of this. Okay. If there's still a problem, and you call, we will help you, and you will be the king or the queen, okay? No discussions, because you shouldn't have to call us. So when you call, you probably have a problem, and in good faith, we'll help you. But afterwards, they think to themselves, every call is a defect, okay? Now, a lot of clients of mine think like, what do you mean every call is a defect? Yeah, I just don't mean that in the sense of try and avoid the call. I mean that is it's our own fault. So Amazon says, even if the customer made a stupid mistake, it's still our fault because we made it too complicated for them. Therefore, they made the mistake. So it's still our mistake, really. So we have to fundamentally go back to point number one and fundamentally rethink and not just avoid the call, but make sure nothing is going to happen. And so what you then get to is you get to products that are easy to service, easy to use. And then you get to that point of that empowerment of the customer. Then it's very logical that those customers, since it's simple to do, don't need somebody else to do it for them. So and we see that also in those surveys. They want the full empowerment. It's empowerment versus offloading. Okay? And I'm still struck by what a CEO many years ago said to me. He said, Edwin, for a big bank, he says, can you make sure that we can have at least for 50% of the stuff that needs to happen, self-servicing, okay? That the customers do it themselves and they don't call our people and they don't come to the branch. And then he said something that will always stick with me. He said, because I do not have to pay the salary of the customer. And I'm like, but I mean, and in the other conversation, you're complaining that your NPS is bad and that the customer don't like your experience and that cross and upsell doesn't work in your call center? Really? Because you don't pay the salary of the customer? That's the wrong way of looking at it, no? That's what we call the offloading. But that used to be the norm. Now it's about that empowerment. And that creates a new form of loyalty as people see and that they get great stuff that they like and they start trusting you, okay? And then we get to that obvious point, which we were just discussing. That is, when all of that has happened and there's almost no service calls, all the rest will be relationship and advice. Okay, and that's what my people will do in my company. So we will make everybody customer facing, and those are really the big ideas of how to structure new businesses. And as you can see, there is no way to do this with the old ways of doing IT and processes. This can only happen in the modern context.
Yeah, and I mean, Edwin, these are very, very profound points. And I mean, I think very simple ideas, but if taken to heart and implemented in the right spirit, can really have profound impacts on customers. I mean, the idea of every call is a defect, for instance, is a very simple idea, but implementing it is not that simple and done right for the right reasons and with the right mindset.
It takes a lot.
It can have really far-reaching consequences on the experience, and it's about choice, right? I mean, it's about giving the customer the ability to do it themselves if they want to. But should a customer want to call you, they should be able to call you, and then you treat it accordingly, right? So I think this is a great segue into the next segment, with which we should possibly wrap up this business. Mm-hmm. But I think you spoke about it in your previous context also to say, I mean, you can have digital on the front, you can empower the customers, you can give the customer the choice of channel, the time and the way they want to engage with you. But it cannot be possible without simplifying the back end and without making that straight through processing and simplification of products and services that sit behind the front end. So with that, maybe you want to just talk a little bit about the business of experience.
Yeah. that's in a sense a great synthesis of all of that. So we used to, over the last 10 years in that digital age, we used to do a lot of customer experience. The word experience was never used in that in that definition before that. So it was about experience used to mean I've done something several times, so I know how to do it. That used to be the meaning of experience. Now experience is more about that other definition of the word experience, which is what do I feel when something is happening. So the last 10 years, what we all did, because we had beautiful front ends on our graphical screens and on our first mobile phones, we made basically the experience of what I see and feel and how I go through it in terms of the screens. I made all of that nice, right? That's kind of what it was. And in a sense, we're all guilty of that. We focused on that. But now that that's kind of done and we know how to do, you still have to do that, obviously, but we're kind of all used to it. We now realize that as such is not enough, because at the end of the day, it's about the delivery of the final service. And most of NPS, so of the Net Promoter Score, is in what we call the second moment of truth. So the first moment of truth being when I make a decision to do something or to buy something or so. And then the second moment is when I get it and I get the experience of what it is that I wanted. But before that, I had a brand, and that brand promised me already something. And then there was more promise during the buying experience, because of course you're going to buy a great thing, and then so of course we get very enthusiastic, and then we get disillusioned when we get the real thing. So business of experience is about thinking of it 360 degrees from the perspective of the customer, okay? and going through that thing about brand promise, and then advisory and sales, and then delivery and service, and then seeing if we are living up to the promise that we gave to the customer. And if we do, we will delight the customer, and then NPS is going to go up, and they're going to love it, and they're going to be the advocates, and business grows. If not, you're going to get hammered on social media, and business goes down. So it's really that 360-degree thing that we need to think of these days, and not just say, I'm going to take a slice somewhere, and I'm going to make it really nice, because that's not enough.
Yeah, and Edwin, I think with that, I would just like to wrap up this session. I think this was a great conversation. The one thing that I would like to add to everything that we said, a lot of this has only been possible because of the power that cloud technologies have given in the hands of individuals, of businesses, the ability to kind of scale, the ability to deliver, to have the agility in the business to be able to get these outcomes in a very short span of time is now possible on the back of cloud. With that, thank you very much, Edwin, for your time. And I really hope that this has created some excitement in the customers that are hearing us today.
Great.
It's amazing in how 2 years businesses have transformed and shifted things around, isn't it? Those businesses that are able to transform at speed have realized huge profits, while those that have not, have adopted ways of working, have sadly shut down. It is actually that stark. And some are battling to survive as we speak. But if they don't get on this digital transformation journey, I don't see how they're going to be around 2 years from now. Competition's even tougher now, since big or small brands are all in this e-commerce space. They're all on platforms. They're just a click away. It's this great democratization of customer access. And customer experience is vital. That's the differentiator. We've seen how customers can easily go to digital platforms. They can complain. They can spread the good news about their experiences, or they can spread the bad news about their experiences. And the bad news travels a lot faster, a lot quicker as well. So for businesses, focus must be on optimizing customer touchpoints around products and services, really getting the customer experience right, and always aiming to solve for the customer needs based on purpose. Thanks for great insights, Jigyasa, and to Edwin. Let's now move on to the next topic, MyNav innovation and what growth looks like in the cloud. How do businesses grow in the cloud? Well, luckily for you, I have some experts on hand. It's time to welcome Paul Sebastian, the Managing Director and Global Product Lead for MyNav Cloud Platform at Accenture India, and Karthik Srinivasa, the platform's lead based in India, and Lefa Ramike, the Cloud First Architect for Accenture South Africa.
Thanks, Bruce. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lefa Ramike. I'm part of the Cloud First organization here in South Africa, and I am a technology architect. And today we'll be discussing this nice topic around how we leverage cloud to grow and innovate. Cloud is and is already setting driving a significant transformation in all industries. And leaders are looking beyond just how they migrate and be in the cloud. They're looking at how they can innovate, grow in the cloud to develop innovative solutions that give them the competitive edge. So as part of this discussion, I'll be joined by two cloud experts from our India office, Karthik and Sebastian, and we'll explore this topic with the differentiated asset that we have as MyNav that helps to migrate, but also helps to grow and innovate in the cloud. So let's hand over to Sebastian. Please help us take a deep dive into the capabilities of MyNav.
Thank you, Lifa. So MyNav is a full spectrum cloud acceleration platform that enables your journey to the cloud and within the cloud. So we have advisory modules within the platform that really provides you cloud insights, and action-oriented modules that enable migration, management, optimization, and cloud-native development within this platform. So if you can move forward. So this platform has 10 key modules, bringing in an end-to-end outlook in the journey to the cloud and within the cloud. And this is shaped up through the MAGI framework of Accenture, which really looks into the aspect of migration first, through the cloud business case builder, where you can evolve an optimal business case for your portfolio, and then get into architecting your portfolio through an assessment of your as-is portfolio into the cloud, and shaping the right dispositions and architectures to follow. After which you can take this portfolio, and after having planned effectively for migrations through wave planning and bundling of your portfolio, you migrate using the cloud migrator. And then you can very well choose for requisite need for compliance using the sovereign cloud advisor. And then after having transformed into the cloud manage and optimizer enables effective management through service assurance, environment management, and spend management of your portfolio. And one of the very important aspects as you would transform into the cloud is centered around bringing in effective change management. So the change advisor and the talent advisor are the two key modules that run in tandem with your transformation. And they enable effective change transformation, both from a talent perspective and organization perspective, and thereby enables the whole transformation to get first time right. The Green Cloud Advisor advises for the level of emissions that you have in your current portfolio and provides for target state views in terms of how you can optimize your emissions and go greener as far as your portfolio when you transform to the cloud is. Then we have the Industry Cloud Advisor providing for industry-specific solutions that could be rightfully leveraged across 19 industries as far as the cloud is concerned. And lastly, we have the Growth and Innovation Accelerator, which is something that we would speak to in more detail in the next session. And this provides for cloud native development accelerators. So these are platforms which provide for low code native development and can enable rapid acceleration of application development within the cloud. The one case that we are talking about is Experience Builder, which is live on this MyNav platform. So this is the coverage that we have. And with this, I will move back to Leifa to provide a perspective on growth and innovation accelerators.
Thank you, Paul, for that in-depth overview of the MyNav capabilities. And the question might arise now, how do we see this in action, right? How do organizations grow and innovate in the cloud? So we'll now look at a couple of use cases and a demonstration of how the Adaptive Experience Builder, a module within MyNav, can be used to grow and innovate in the cloud. And Karthik will help us with that discussion.
Thank you, Leifa. With Grow and Innovation Accelerator, organizations can reimagine and create entirely new cloud-native experiences for their workers and customers. One of the first modules that is part of MyNav Grow and Innovate module is Adaptive Experience Builder. Adaptive is a platform to enable custom development of cloud-first digital solutions at speed and scale. The Adaptive platform combines the power of cloud-native services with unique Accenture IP in an open, modern architecture that is configurable, extensible, and fully managed by Accenture. It has a set of pre-integrated multi-cloud digital services and assets enabling clients to drive greater value from the cloud data. Using the platform, Accenture delivers custom applications and solutions that help clients create new experiences, better ROI on marketing campaigns through personalized services, develop and scale edge solutions combining the power of cloud-native services and edge analytics, and develop new ecosystem-powered business models. Experience Builder is part of the Adaptive platform that helps reimagine or re-architect business processes and consumer experiences, rapidly developing context-aware solutions and customer journeys. Moving on. So let me delve a little bit more into what Experience Builder is all about. To begin with, it is a headless architecture and resides in the system of engagement layer. The key entry point into Experience Builder is a software event that signifies a moment in which consumer experience can be influenced. For example, a consumer walking into a retail shop with the retailer's mobile app could be a moment. A consumer initiating a travel booking on a website could be a moment. A consumer posting a comment in social media page of an enterprise or consumer calling a call center for support could be an event. All these moments are recognized by Experience Builder as a software event. On receiving such an event, what follows could be choreographed as a customer journey to Experience Builder's low-code portal. For a customer journey to be brought to life, there are more components than events to be configured. All relevant customer information residing in southbound systems like a CRM, ERP, legacy systems that have been modernized through APIs, etc., need to be configured as context objects. Following which all possible actions that need to be taken, for example, sending an SMS, making an outbound IVR call, sending a push notification, initiating a bot conversation, also need to be configured as action objects. In addition, Experience Builder provides a set of cloud-native services and homegrown business services as widgets that can be readily used in building customer journeys. Once all of these SI is in place, building a customer journey is simple. Using a drag and drop interface, a recipe, which is a combination of events, context objects, and actions, can be brought together to realize a customer journey. One of the key differentiating features of Experience Builder in comparison to the fact that it can continuously monitor each moment in a customer journey and understand what precedes and what follows. This is done uniquely through a combination of journey states and artificial intelligence-based journey intelligence. Some of the key benefits of this platform include engaging customers at key moments can enable increase in consumer spends, number one. Number two, delivering one-on-one engagements, enterprises achieve a higher experience score, translating into an increase in customer retention. Proactive engagements, obviously with consumers, reduces cost to serve. Revenue uplift by enabling new revenue streams is an implicit outcome using Experience Builder. Moving on, let us now look at a demo of Experience Builder in the insurance domain, very specifically transformation of claims experience, where using Experience Builder, the insurance company can act as an empathetic partner to the consumer rather than an insurance provider alone. In this use case, the customer meets with an accident. The insurance company is then able to understand the context of the customer by listening to an IoT event coming from the vehicle. From that moment onwards, you would see how proactive services like tow truck assignment, ambulance services, followed by the overall claim process itself, is seamlessly managed by Experience Builder, by stitching all of these together as a seamless customer journey for the customer. Let us now look at the demo.
Renault Clio.
Thank you for the information. Is your car drivable?
No, it's not drivable.
Don't worry, I will help with roadside assistance. Do you prefer to use digital assistant or speak to a live agent?
Digital assistant.
You will receive an SMS with a link to the digital assistant or roadside assistance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alexa, ask Big Insurance for repair status of my car.
Let me look that up for you. Assessment of your Honda Civic is now complete. Insurer approved the payment on January 18th. Good news. You will not be paying out-of-pocket expenses for the damage since the other party was at fault. Preparations for repair will start today. The estimated date your car will be ready for pickup is January 30th. Would you also like me to create a calendar event on the day your vehicle is ready to pick up?
Yes.
Okay. I have created an event at January 30th for the pickup of your Honda Civic.
Thank you, Karthik, for that insightful discussion on the use cases and a demonstration of the MyNav Experience Builder. And now is the time to look beyond just migrating to the cloud. We've seen how MyNav can help you do that, but also MyNav can help you also innovate and grow in the cloud through the Experience Builder that will enable you to derive value and get better customer experiences. To understand MyNav and how MyNav can accelerate your cloud journey and specifically use the adaptive experience, you can scan the QR code in order to express interest. And this QR code is on the screen at the moment. It can be found in the postcard in your branded pack that you've received. And you can also use the chat tool on this platform, and we'll be able to get in touch with you and help you on how you can use MyNav and Adaptive Experience Builder for your future experiences. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. Paul, any final remarks you want to make?
Yeah, I would really call on all of you to leverage the MyNav platform. It's a full spectrum cloud acceleration platform and will help accelerate your cloud journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Karthik, your final remarks?
No, same here. So looking forward to having you all explore MyNav and specifically MyNav Experience Builder.
Thank you very much for that. And looking forward to everyone reaching out and how we can help you further to grow and innovate in the cloud.
Thank you, Lifa, Paul, Karthik. Thanks very much indeed to all three of you. On the point of reflection, just most of you are invested in cloud, but are you getting the real value that you thought that you would be getting from that investment? Are you getting the competitive edge that you need to get one over on your competitors? I do hope that you've scanned the QR code already to express your interest in the MyNav assessment tool, and someone from Accenture can contact you to discuss more and how they can help you and help support you on your cloud journey. The time has come for us to hear from the businesses that have walked this journey of innovation and growth. We have a deep dive on successful cloud business models. So in order to do that, let me welcome Barry Swartzberg, who is the Chief Executive of Vitality Group, Neil Adamson, the Head of Platform Business Development at Discovery Vitality, in conversation with Richard Pouncett. Now, Richard is Head of S&C Innovation for Accenture Africa.
Welcome everybody to day 4 of Accenture's Cloud First series. My name is Richard Pouncett and I look after our innovation team for strategy and consulting in Africa. Today I'm very lucky to have Barry Swartzberg, the founder of Discovery and CEO of Vitality, and his ex-CIO Neil Adamson, who's now moving on to new business ventures with Vitality. Neil and Barry, it's great to have you both join us today. Perhaps I'll allow yourselves to introduce to the audience. Barry?
Thanks, Richard, and thanks for inviting us to your show today. So I've been with Discovery for 3 decades now. So I started when I was 12. No, I've been there 3 decades. One of the founders of the company, and I've had a few different areas of responsibility within the organization. I was the CEO of Discovery Health at one stage. And over the last couple of years, I've focused on internationalizing our business model. And it's a business model that's been very successful in South Africa and the UK. And we're looking at what we wanted to do was to expand it outside of those countries into other markets. And actually, we were approached by a lot of potential clients. And I've been focusing over the last sort of decade on building our international business. And it's been a fantastic journey. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent, thanks. Mr. Neil Adamson.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. And once to repeat what Barry said, thanks very much for the invite. So I've been with Discovery for slightly less time than Barry. It's going on around about 10 years now. Before that, I was at IBM and also at Liberty. We've been, as you said, I was a CIO of Vitality Group, and that gave us the opportunity to build a platform that would enable Vitality Group or Discovery's global ambitions. And since having launched that successfully, what we are doing, as you touched on, we're looking at other ways of monetizing or creating value for Discovery through the platform. So that's really what I've been involved in with Accenture as well over the last year or so.
Excellent, and an honor to have you both with us today. I think most South Africans who are on this call would have a good understanding of what Vitality is. I think most of us get around a braai and discuss our Vitality points at the end of a weekend. But how do you introduce the organization to some of your global clients, Barry? What does Vitality stand for, and how does it create value for them globally?
Yeah, so I mean that is part of my role, is actually trying to get out there and market what we currently do. In essence, our organization is about changing behavior, incentivizing people to change behavior, whether that is on health or on driving or banking. And once they change the behavior, is the impact of that change of behavior on financial services products. So in the main, when we've internationalized, we've mainly focused on life insurance and health insurance. We are expanding into driving as well. So what we do is we go and explain this business model. Most insurance companies, how they underwrite risk is at inception of the policy. So they assess the person's risk when the person takes out that policy. But what we're trying to do is influence that risk after they've taken out that policy. So by trying to change behavior. So take driving, for example. The most simple example is a typical insurance company will assess them when they take out the policy, where they park their motor vehicle at night, where do they drive their vehicles, do they drive it at night, etc., how old they are, have they had previous incidents, accidents, etc. So we also do that. We have an initial assessment of risk, but then together with that, we actually encourage them to drive better, and we measure that. So how fast do they drive, their acceleration, their braking, their lateral movements. And we're putting incentives and rewards in place to improve their driving. And once they actually improve their driving, what is the impact of them on their insurance policy? And for us, that intersection between behavior change and financial risk is really at the epicenter of what we do.
Amazing. Thanks, Barry. Neil, a lot of today's conversation and the conversation this week with our audience has been around the cloud. And today focuses a lot on how the cloud enables growth and innovation and new ways of making money. When people ask you how much of Vitality is in the cloud, how do you respond?
So all of it. From a Vitality Group perspective, and excluding Vitality RSA and Vitality UK, but the true global business that we run with all of our partners across the world, from Asia all the way through Europe, through the Americas, our entire IT infrastructure is in the cloud. We've implemented 3 or 4 sites, where we run an instance of Vitality One, our global platform, and all of our clients run from the cloud. So we have no local systems operations for Vitality Group in South Africa.
Amazing. Okay, and you speak a lot about going global with Vitality. Can you help us understand just how much of the globe you've been able to cover with the Vitality brand?
So from Canada, from the US, we have partners both in both of those countries. We have partners in a number of South American countries, from Ecuador, Brazil, Argentina, etc. We have a partnership with Generali in Europe, where we cover a substantial amount of Europe: Germany, France, Austria, Spain now. And then moving into the Middle East, we have partnerships with Tawania and IGI. And then across over into Asia, a very large partnership with AIA that spreads into around about 18 countries. And then Ping An in China, as well as Sumitomo in Japan. So we have a substantial footprint across the globe. And all of those markets that we service and we operate Vitality for are all hosted in the cloud in an Amazon data center in one of those regions.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, and I think one most South Africans are quite proud of. How long has it taken you to achieve some of the scale? It sounds like there are somewhere around kind of 30 markets you've been able to scale to globally. Give us a sense of how long this has taken you. How long has it taken to perhaps launch your first market, and how quickly are you able to do that today, thanks in part to the cloud?
Yeah, so we started with the original Vitality solution, which we quickly realized that was not fit for purpose for internationalization. So we made a decision in around about 2016 to build our international Vitality platform from the ground up, with the capabilities that are required to run an international business baked in from the beginning. So you look at a multi-tenant capability, a multi-language capability, multi-currency, multi-time zone. All of those needed to be natively built into the platform to be able to handle the demands and the requirements of our clients. If you have a look at a company like AIA, they run across multiple countries, multiple currencies, multiple languages. And we just simply couldn't offer our Vitality solution, purely in English. So we started in 2016. We went live into Japan as our first client. Barry will attest to the fact that if you do want to do things properly, choose Japan as your first client. They certainly do force the commitment to your promises, and they expect you to deliver. If you say you're going to deliver something at 20 past, you cannot be 19 minutes past or 21 past. You have to be at 20 past, else there's quite a large escalation. So certainly focused our minds in terms of the quality that we needed to provide for Japan. We released simultaneously into South Korea as well, with our partnership once again with AIA and SK Telecom. So we launched both of those in around about August, September 2018. Since then, we've put on a further 14 or 15 countries. So we've got it down pat now to a country implementation from start to finish, negotiations, partner implementations, rewards implementations in around about 6 to 9 months, and we can do those in parallel. So at any given time, we could be implementing 2 or 3 countries at the same time, with the various teams that we put in charge of each of those markets to implement for them. So we have the ability to rapidly implement Vitality into a country with a partner, and also to do that in accordance with the data regulatory requirements that they have, the security requirements, and certainly all of that is enabled by the cloud.
That's incredible rigor and speed that you move with. And Neil, I might come back to you in a moment and unpack how you're able to achieve that. But before we go there, I suppose a question for Barry, and I suppose a question that many of our business leaders have at the top of their mind is articulating what is the value of cloud. I think most when they talk about the topic, think about potentially reducing the cost of IT. When you talk to other business leaders, how do you articulate the value that cloud has brought to your organization?
Well, Richard, I don't think we could have done it without the cloud, our infrastructure like the cloud. I mean, when we went out initially and we took our business model to other markets, we took our legacy system and we implemented in those markets, which was very, very expensive, very difficult to do, time consuming, and we couldn't go from market to market. It became kind of impossible. We are a platform, all digitally enabled platform. I think things have changed over the last couple of years, where people is the measurable self. You focus on we're having a wearable device and on getting information on nutrition and on other apps that can interact with your application. It became, I mean, the business model wouldn't have worked without the cloud. It was just simply too expensive. You know, insurance companies, the margin is not that significant, and therefore you've got to be able to, you're giving them some product that, you know, that they want to implement and they're keen to implement that is reasonable and reasonably priced. And the only way we could do it was by having some, you know, shared services, shared data, not shared data, but shared services and that type of thinking, and it was only enabled through the cloud.
Incredible. And how do you think it's impacted the lives and the careers of the people in your organization? I mean, you think about how has the organizational culture been impacted, the type of people that you recruit these days? How has that been fundamentally impacted by having a business that is, as Neil said, 100% cloud-based?
Well, first of all, we can hire people all over. We work with people all over. We work with Accenture in the Philippines. We work with we've got staff in America. We've got staff in pretty much all the markets. We've got staff in South Africa. So we can work worldwide, you know, on a real-time basis. And also it's very, very exciting for people. You know, they might be sitting in Johannesburg or in Chicago and they're operating around the world. You know, they're involved in so many different markets, you know, simultaneously. Really is exciting, dealing with a whole bunch of different cultures and, you know, ways of implementing our product. You know, it's not one size fits all. You need to adapt it for the local conditions. And it makes it very, very interesting and exciting for people to be able to, you know, take something that is locally grown here in South Africa and internationalize it. You know, people are attracted to it. It's quite entrepreneurial. The environment is entrepreneurial, and it really is it's at the cutting edge of technology, not at the bleeding edge, but at the cutting edge of where technology is. So I think, you know, it's, you know, new company, new products, internationalizing it with sort of cutting edge technology. It makes it for a very interesting workplace. And so we do attract and retain our staff.
Yeah, incredible. Neil, I suppose my next question for you, if you know, Barry talks about how the business has evolved and how the cultures have evolved, I almost think back to 2016, where you would have been the CIO, the man in charge of the tech shop as Vitaly was going global. Where do you even start as the head of technology in laying down a foundation that enables this long term?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, having been involved in the rollout of the Vitality program with the legacy system that Barry touched on, you know, we very quickly realized that we would not survive on the international stage if we didn't change the way that we did things technically. You know, it caused the legacy system is fit for purpose. It works very well in South Africa, but it's designed for a single company. And we learned very quickly that through the unhappiness of our partners that we were implementing the legacy system on, that you know, doing this on the international level was just not going to cut it. So we were driven by necessity. Where do you start? You have to source the right people. You have to have people who believe in what you're doing. And we were lucky. We got a very strong technical team. Our enterprise architect is very, very strong. And collectively, you know, we spent around about 5 or 6 months looking at different options, looking at different ways of doing things, and also investigating what was happening out in the tech space and in that area, and looking at large companies like LinkedIn, like Google, etc., and how were they managing to scale? How were they getting global platforms working correctly? And so that led us down the road of a sort of choice of a tech stack that we felt would serve what was needed in Vitality if we were to meet the aspirations of Barry and Adrian, etc. And one thing you learn at Discovery is those aspirations are not set at a low level. They set at an extremely high level. So to answer those questions from a tech side, you know, we really had to look at the kind of technologies that would support us. And then we had to learn them. You know, back in 2016, microservices, Kubernetes, and, you know, just all open source technologies that we used. Just the skills weren't available. So we spent a huge amount of time retreading our existing dev teams, looking for additional support staff and engaging with newer companies for queuing mechanisms or technologies like Kafka. And just ensuring that we understood those technologies and that we implemented them in a way that was fit for purpose. We had a lot of what we used to call weekend team building sessions where things weren't working. And as I say, when your client is host or located in Japan, you have to make things work. So it was a long learning curve. It was certainly an experience that I think the entire team went through collectively. But we came through it, and it's all hosted in the cloud. It's a new architecture. The entire platform was built from the ground up to take advantage of what the cloud can offer in terms of horizontal scaling, ability to rapidly roll out or deploy new features, and just various technologies or architectural capabilities like that. So, but it's been a journey, and if I look at what the current CIO is doing and the architecture team and the dev teams, it's a never-ending journey. You're always looking at seeing, well, what new technology has come out? What is Amazon offering that we can take advantage of? What are the new ideas happening in the tech world that we can implement? And then the last point that you really have to worry about is security. Moving to the cloud does not give you a free ride on security. It's just as necessary or as required to secure your systems in the cloud, perhaps even more so than if you were doing them in a local data center. And that's been quite a strong growth area for us because, we look after the data of a number of global insurance companies, and certainly we take that responsibility very seriously.
Yeah, can I just add something, Richard, that this is unlike any other kind of platform where it's a single instance worldwide, same platform. Here we are a B2B2C business model that we sell it our know-how, our infrastructure to other insurance companies that on-sell it to their clients, and they have specific requirements, and there are specific partners in that market, and so a lot of work is bespoke. So not the bulk of it of the work, but we need to localize the platform. So that's why it does take us some time to implement it in a specific market, because you're taking this sort of generalized system and then localizing it for a specific market. And as Neil said earlier on, we're getting very good at that now. Initially when we did it, took us a long time. I think the quality was good. But today, the quality is excellent. The time spent to actually implement the product in a market is quick. And our vision now is actually to move towards more of a pure platform, to be able to go to smaller markets where the product is not bespoke, where it is sort of more universal in nature.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I suppose it leads me to believe that your business case, when you thought about putting Vitality on the cloud, was one that was not orientated around being just more efficient, cheaper than the existing stack, that there was something bigger at play. So you were constantly trying to think of value in a way that wasn't just around efficiencies. So, how do you really crystallize that value of putting your business on the cloud to justify the amount of effort and investment that you've put into security, global development teams, customization for clients? How have you managed to kind of justify that?
Yeah, so I think, Rich, that the cloud isn't always necessarily cheaper. In fact, you can get yourself into substantial trouble if you don't manage your cloud infrastructure. People will spin up servers without you really knowing about it. If you're running a sort of IT shop and you've got your local data center, if you need to procure a new server, it's a sort of 3 to 5 to 7 week process. So you can manage those costs relatively easily. In the cloud, you can suddenly find that your developers have spun up 5 new machines without you even knowing about it. So there is a word of warning there. It's not always cheaper, and service sprawl is a very real thing. So whilst we thought that we would get some good savings on the cloud infrastructure, it wasn't our primary driver. Our primary driver really was for rapid scale. When you're dealing with an insurance market that suddenly adds on an additional 100,000 members, and you need to scale upwards or outwards, you haven't got that turnaround time of 6 to 8 weeks to procure new servers. When you've got a special event and you've got a sort of an extra 700,000-800,000 members logging on, you don't have the luxury of not being able to scale outwards and then to shrink your environment back down to standard scale when you do need it. The other attraction for us was this moving away from heavy capex costs and then moving into more OpEx related costs. So you can rent your server, you can rent your databases, etc., on a monthly OpEx cost rather than having to lay out specific capex. What we also found very interestingly enough, and it's a spin-off, was when we would work with a large insurance company, Generali, AIA, Sumitomo, they all had very set technology stacks. So, for instance, AIA would have a very heavy investment in technology vendor A's, database. And if you came with technology vendor B's database, there was a lot of sort of fighting about it, and it's a non-standard. As soon as you put something into their cloud, use an open source database, Postgres, or we use Amazon Aurora, all of that goes away. The tech people suddenly sort of think, oh, wow, that's quite cool. We don't mind that. So a lot of those religious differences that happen in the tech space disappeared very, very quickly with that. And then data regulation. We just simply can't store data in a single data center. So if we had to set this up in South Africa, you'd be talking to companies in Germany and Japan, in France and Australia. They just would be very uncomfortable with their data being hosted in a country like South Africa. And there's nothing wrong with us. I'm not saying that that's true, but the perception is there. So, to Barry's point, a large insurance company gets to choose if they want to run a single instance of Vitality. Japan chose so. They host their data inside Japan, and it was very quick to spin up into the AWS environment in Japan. We've got a shared environment which comes at a much cheaper price, and a lot of our clients go into there, but it's in Frankfurt, which, Germany, it's inside the EU, it's ruled by GDPR. We GDPR compliant, and there's a lot more assurance from clients that their data is secure in Frankfurt than it is elsewhere. So there's a number of different considerations that we had to take into account when we thought, how are we going to implement this? And then, yes, our original intention was to have one single platform, as Barry said, try and keep things as standardized as possible, run all of our clients in one replicated environment, and manage everybody in one instance. But we soon found out that, just data privacy concerns, country regulations, you can't do that. So we've ended up running 4 instances across the world. And typically those are sufficient. But if we get another big client and they want to run in country, we can spin up another instance for them, and they can run their Vitality instance in country as well. It comes at a cost, but that's the trade-off between, what the country's data regulatory requirements are, and the cost differential that it incurs.
Really insightful. Thanks, Neil. Barry, today's conversation is a lot around growth and innovation as well, and how the cloud is enabling organizations to continue evolving into the future, to launch new products and services, new offerings, target new industries in new ways. What's next for Vitality? What's the next growth wave, and how is the cloud a key enabler of entry into new industries, entry into new business models?
It's a great question, Richard. Thanks. It's something that we think about all the time is, what do we do next and how do we expand? And I think our whole sort of strategy initially was, first of all, a partnership strategy, and secondly, sort of a land and expand. So get into a market, start operating in that market and look for other opportunities within that market. And it is playing out. We actually are growing into different lines in these markets using the similar business plan or business model of behavior change linked to insurance or financial services. So, for example, in Saudi Arabia, we partnered with Tawania for life and health insurance, and more lately we added on Drive. So Vitality, behavior change, driving behavior linked to their motor insurance. So we are expanding to other business lines using the same model and the same infrastructure and the same cloud capabilities. So our model has not been to own infrastructure in the countries or licensing or have an insurance presence. It is to partner. So our margins aren't as high as, let's say, an insurance organization. Our returns aren't as high, but but our whole model was to sort of a mile wide, inch deep, to go to multiple markets, partner with as many insurance companies as possible, get into that market, and then look for opportunities within that market using our existing model. That's why Vitality One and using the cloud will enable us to expand what we currently do to other lines of business inside those markets. So it's very much in line with our strategy.
Amazing. Neil, for you, I know we've spoken about your years as CIO, and your career now continues to evolve within Vitality. What do you see as the future of Vitality, and how have you personally had to evolve?
Sure. So I mean, we think that what we built has huge applicability across various vertical industries. I think our true focus has always been on insurance and financial services, and certainly, with all of the years of actual experience that Discovery has and behavioral science experience, what we're trying to look at is how do we take that to other verticals using that platform. Certainly the platform's built for scale, and we would like to see it really compete with other mega platforms at scale. So as many different behavior change programs, it's a very clumsy way of saying it, but that we can implement across various vertical industries, we think there's huge opportunity there. And hence my agreement with Barry that we start looking at other opportunities. But yeah, look, there's huge applicability for Vitality as well as an engagement. If you have a look at some of the stats that we've got across both South Africa, when we introduced Active Rewards into the South African app, we went from 2 logons a month to around about 20 logons a month. The engagement opportunities that you get by talking to or having your clients' eyeballs on your app 20 times a month versus 2, I think is huge. You can certainly start to communicate in a much more deeper or meaningful way with your members if they're logging onto your app sort of 20 times a month. So if you can extend that to other markets or to other areas where their engagements just are not as meaningful as what Vitality encourages, we think there's a huge opportunity there. Even if you look at some of the insurance companies, a company like Sumitomo is a fantastically successful company, 100 years old, but they sell life insurance when you're 20 and they hardly ever speak to you, until you die, and then somebody speaks to them on your behalf because you're a little bit incapable of doing that yourself at that stage of your life. So what you need to do then is try and see, well, how do I get to know what's happened to my client? And I think they've been astounded at the way that Vitality has opened up their eyes to what their members are doing, how their risk profiles are changing, etc. So Vitality as an engagement capability, I think is great. And then I also think, the world is moving towards a much healthier living. COVID-19 has devastated the world in terms of health and wellness, etc. So people are becoming more aware, more willing to engage in health and wellness programs. And, you can use that no matter what industry you're in to show good faith to your members, as well as to engage with them in a way that's not directly transactional. Spend R5 with me and I'll give you 5 cents back. And when you've spent millions of rands with me, you can maybe go and get yourself a free jersey or something. That type of transactional engagement mechanism, I don't think works that well anymore.
Yeah. But maybe now a few softer questions. I almost wonder if there's ever been a moment in your cloud journey where you fundamentally regretted the decision. If there have been any hiccups along the way, and then also I'm going to after that ask some of your most proudest moments, the moments that have really stood out for you in the cloud journey as huge business successes. You can answer them either way around, but maybe Barry, I'll start with you. Any moment of regret along the cloud journey, a moment where you think you've got a key message to share with others on what not to do?
So look, I don't think it was around, I suppose, cloud. It was more the architecture required once you made the decision to go cloud. I think we were at one of the first organizations, certainly in South Africa, that was doing it internationally. And, I wasn't in a moment of regret, but, the architecture required microservices and, as Neil says, Kubernetes and Kafka and all these issues. And there wasn't really a knowledge base of people that could assist us. So we're kind of out there on our own. So when we had issues early on with it, we had to rely on ourselves and to get it going. And so there were some, I wouldn't say there were like concerns that this thing wasn't going to work. We had to work through it. We had, as Neil said, a client that was very highly demanding right up front that we had to deliver. We were using cutting edge technology, and we just had to work through it and to get errors out, get the speed up. I suppose those are the issues, and it was a very fast learning curve. I think we've benefited from it over time. Today we are efficient, it's running exceptionally well. So I think having gone through that learning curve, we are a better organization for it. But there was a moment in time when, we had to work through those tough times. And, thankfully we use consultants like yourselves, Accenture, who really assisted us in getting through those tough moments. So, it kind of worked out in the end.
Neil, any similar moments you would want to share?
Yeah, I'd probably just repeat what Barry said. Look, we certainly not the cloud. I don't think we ever sort of said, well, the cloud is not the answer. But then the cloud is, from very much from our point of view, especially in 2016, was the infrastructure. So if you're running, a Linux box in the cloud, or you're running a Linux VM in your data center, it doesn't really make a difference. But certainly the technologies that we chose, now they all, they all were birthed in the cloud, and they all designed for the cloud. But there were many times that that you would wake up and think, are we actually going to get through this? Because things were just not performing as we expected them to perform. Things were very different. I have to credit the dev teams. They stuck to it. We learned a hell of a lot. I think that probably the scariest part was we had and I won't mention the tech name, but we had a problem with our Docker container management tool. And we made the choice to migrate from that particular technology into native Kubernetes. And we did that 3 weeks before we launched into Japan, 3 weeks before we went live. We had a number of people on the ground, but that eventually worked, and it gave us the results we were expecting. So we got a huge uptick in performance. But to do a major infrastructure change 3 weeks before you're about to go live into Japan was kind of scary. So no real regrets. I think it's played out. I think it's done, it really has given us the flexibility that we do need. But yes, some very hairy moments along the way, and you do need to just stick at it. What we do find is, it's in my experience in the IT industry, people will chop and change technologies. A developer will say, well, we've gone down the road 3 months with this one, but we can't do that. My approach was always, it works for LinkedIn, it works for Google, it works for Microsoft, it works for Facebook, etc. So why would it not work for us? And rather than blame the technology, let's look at our skills and let's make it work. But let's not chop and change technologies at the drop of a hat. The reason we went to Kubernetes was we were suffering some severe performance issues that we weren't getting in our test environment with Kubernetes. So that was the key decision. It certainly wasn't a tech change. It was more of a vendor change. The underlying technology was exactly the same.
And Richard, just to add, I don't believe we ever compromised, like made the second choice or whatever. We said we're going to stick with this. We're going to do what we believe is right. We didn't compromise on decision making, on the technology, on the people involved in it, and we gave people the latitude. We gave people involved in this who are managing on a day-to-day basis the latitude to get the things right. We didn't step in, or management step in and try, look peer over their shoulders, etc. We believed in the team. They were doing it from the architects to the Neil, the CIO, and we gave them the latitude to get it right. And they delivered in the end, thankfully.
Yeah, there were many times when people would say, why don't we go back to a proprietary vendor with the messaging system? Why don't we do this? And to Barry's point, we never compromised. And I think the bar was set very high. I do remember a few months before we launched into Japan, Barry agreed with our UK office that we would launch for them as well. And then he agreed in the Korea office that we would launch for them as well. So we did sort of 3 implementations when we were expecting 1 within the space of a few months or so. But that's discovery. It drives you. It's not worth doing, then don't do it. And certainly Barry's ambition was a huge push for us to not just build one country. And I think that was key for us as well, because if we had focused exclusively on launching for Japan, we probably would have missed a lot of the multi-tenanted, multi-language issues that might have arisen if we had decided only sort of 6 months later to launch for another country. But if you're doing 3 countries, 1 in Japanese, 1 in Korean, and 1 in English, simultaneously, it does really highlight those multi-tenancy or language currency time zone issues, which you can catch you anyway, and rather catch them early. So
it sounds like Barry was definitely keeping you busy for many years.
Barry likes to say yes to new opportunities, which is great.
Yeah, but I suppose that is the entrepreneurial spirit that South Africans have come to know within the Discovery Group, and something that you can be proud of. And maybe just in closing, I suppose I'm going to ask each of you, we covered some of your maybe potential regrets and lessons learned from those, but what have been some of your most proudest moments in the cloud journey and in the Vitality journey? And if you had to leave with a few lessons for other C-suite executives from South African businesses, what major lessons would you have for them? So proudest moments and kind of key lessons from your journey. Whenever either one of you is ready.
So go for it, Neil. Go.
I think one of my proudest is the fact we launched into Korea 2 months before Japan. Korea was an afterthought. I didn't think that it was considered as a sort of key strategic opportunity, although that the program was intended to offer Vitality into Korea. But Korea was a huge success story in terms of proving the technology. We went to 1.5 million members, within the space of 3 months or less than 3 months. And it's my view that that's one of the fastest growing Vitality, or is the fastest growing Vitality program ever. Nobody's ever gone to 1.5 million members within 3 months. Certainly, I think it's a record in a number of different areas and industries to get 1.5 million members on the launch of a brand new program. It was with a whole bunch of marketing, and to be fair, SK and AI put a huge amount of above the line marketing and effort into it. But that was on a brand new system. That system hadn't been stress tested. It hadn't been properly productionized. It hadn't had years of production experience. And, we met with the Korean team at from 2 until 3 every single day, talking through issues and problems. But the program was very, very well received. The app won the most innovative app in Korea for 2018. And it proved the scalability of the program. You can join a program and not participate. But we were doing, hundreds of thousands of workouts daily. We were getting hundreds of thousands of logins daily. We had a couple of hairy moments, a couple of all-nighters where things didn't go as according to plan. But in the main, that program became very, very successful. And for a brand new system that can support and manage and operate 1.5 million members in its sort of first 12 weeks of going live, I thought was great. And then the second one was launching into Japan. Japan were very upset because we were delayed by about 2 to 3 hours with the launch. I don't think they've ever not reminded us of that every time we meet with them. But, once again, a fantastic launch. We had to restart the entire infrastructure prior to going live, and that caused us a delay. But since then, it's been operating really well. And to me, it's also one of the most successful programs I think that we put in globally. And it's been a great relationship. I'm sure Barry will agree with that.
Incredible. Barry, from your side.
So, Richard, yes, it's been a fantastic journey. I mean, this whole thing, getting involved in it. I mean, my background is not in technology. My background is insurance. But to be part of this whole thing has been an absolutely fantastic journey, and to take sort of uniquely South African intellectual property and internationalizing has been a great journey. My proudest moment is actually the most recent implementation. We just recently launched in Spain. using the cloud, using Vitality One, using Accenture as our service provider, and it was exceptional. We implemented within the time frame, within budget, 0 defects. We went live with no defects, which for me just shows that over the years we've improved the platform so well that we can actually implement it, on time, within budget, and with no errors. That's for me. It's been the proudest moment. I mean, the entire journey, I've really been, it's been a fantastic journey. Just lessons learned for me is, I think 2 things. As I mentioned earlier, let the people involved in developing this, give them the freedom to operate and to bring the best out of them. And, don't constrain them in any which way. That's number one. However, make them part of the decision making, make them part of the business imperative, that they need to understand what is their business imperative. They need to be part of the solution, that they feel that they're contributing to the solution. They know what the business issues are. They know they need to deliver within a specific time frame, as I said, within a specific budget. They're aware of that, and they take ownership of that. For me, that's been the key lesson, is sort of a symbiotic relationship between sort of the business and the technology, and not a sort of a supplier-customer kind of relationship, rather symbiotic. And I think it's worked well. We're all a team, we're all pushing in the same direction to make a success of it and to grow the business, to give everyone more opportunities.
Incredible. It's an organization we're very proud of being partners with. We're always thrilled to see South African businesses go outside of our borders, as you said, to take our IP and our brilliance elsewhere in the world and to create value for clients in many other countries. And it's an organization we are very proud of partnering with. That's it from my side, unless there are any closing comments, Barry and Neil?
No, good.
No, just Richard, it's been actually a great pleasure to work with Accenture. A great service from you guys over many years. We've been working together for, I don't know now, 7, 8 years, whatever. And we've never been let down, and it's worked exceptionally well. And you guys have added great value to our company. So just to thank you and Accenture.
Absolutely endorse that. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. And I think that closes the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. The journeys may be difficult, but they certainly are incredible and very rewarding when you've got partners that can hold your hand, digitally hold your hand. None of the touchy stuff on this cloud journey. Things go better. So thank you to Barry, to Neil, to Richard for the great insights on how the Vitality Group has achieved growth through cloud investments. Now, with that in mind, let me take this opportunity to announce, drum roll please, no drum roll, okay. The Accenture APAC region is hosting a Vision to Value Cloud event on the 11th of August 2021. Please register for that session. It's a great lineup of speakers from Rakuten Mobile, Petronas, Macquarie Bank and Envision Bank. Scan this QR code to register for that event. And in closing, thank you all once again for attending. Thank you to all of the speakers over the last 4 days, but today especially, thank you to Louis, to Barry, to Neil for taking some time out to talk through their respective cloud journeys. And thanks to the Accenture Chief Executive, Vukani Mkati, and his leadership team for the cloud investments and partnerships, insights that are aimed at supporting you on your journey to cloud. Thanks also to Jigyasa, the Accenture Cloud First Lead for Africa, for the event series. And we've come to the end of this event. It's very sad, but there'll be more. Don't worry about it. From me, Bruce Whitfield, have a very good and productive afternoon. Work late into the night to make up for all of the work that you've missed today. And until next time, bye-bye.